What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. My name's Micah, and today we're going to talk about the ECU tune, the flash that we got from Mafia on our 2024 Kawasaki ZX-6R. So we had taken out the computer, the ECU, to our motorcycle. We mailed it off to Mafia with some details about the modifications that we have on our motorcycle. They sent it back to us, we threw it back in our bike, and this thing is super cool now. So in this video, I'm just gonna walk you through what all is changed and different about our bike now. Mafia sends you a little slip of paper back with your ECU, and it lets you know exactly what they did to it, what's deleted, what's changed, what to expect. And so I'll tell you guys how long this whole ordeal took, how long it took us to get our computer, our ECU back, exactly what it cost us, and of course, we are gonna take this black beauty out for a rip so you guys can kind of see and hear and hopefully kind of feel what the finished product is like now. And spoiler alert, this thing is bad to the bone now. I could not be more happy with it. So without further ado, let's rip into it. So now first off, how long did it take for us to get our ECU back from when we shipped it out? It was exactly 7 days for us. So I sent our ECU out on a Thursday. I received it back exactly a week later on a Thursday from Mafia. Now I did not do an expedited or faster shipping on my part when I sent it down to them, and I did not elect to do the expedited faster shipping that Mafia had. It was a little bit extra. I forget exactly what it was, if it was $15 or $25 more. But supposedly you'd shave a few days off of that. You know, Mafia promises to flash your computer, your ECU, and send it back out to you the same day. So if you did a faster shipping on your part and then you elected to do the expedited shipping that Mafia has as an option on their site, it's possible you could get your ECU back in maybe 4 days. But something to note is that Mafia is closed on Sundays and Mondays. So you could get your ECU back if you sent it out on a Monday. You might be able to get it back in 4 days, you know, get it back on Friday or something. But if you send your ECU out on a Thursday or a Friday, it's probably not gonna be 4 days. Now, when you get your ECU back, it's just gonna be in a little box. So in this little box, you're going to have a slip of paper. So on this slip of paper, I'll get nice and close and show you guys here, you're gonna have a little checklist of everything that was done to your motorcycle, everything that their flash affects and changes on your bike. Now below the list of everything that they changed on your bike, you're gonna have some instructions here of what to do to not get a check engine light on your motorcycle. Now I was fully planning and expecting to get a check engine light on our motorcycle after we put our ECU back in the bike from being flashed. That's kind of what I've read and what I've heard, and so I thought that, you know, we'd have to kind of do the Kawasaki factory reset, in which you take like 3 different rides on your bike. They're each like 25 minutes or 25 miles, you know, roughly. And then your computer should reset and clear the codes itself. You know, there is an adapter that you can get to hook into your bike. I'll throw a link to that in the description, but it just plugs into a standard OBD2 car scanner. And so with that, of course, you could clear the engine code instantly if you've got one. And so me never having done this before, obviously I just followed the instructions that they had on this little list. So the instructions read as follows: turn key on for 10 seconds, turn key off for 10 seconds, start your motorcycle and let it idle, turn your motorcycle off again, wait 10 seconds, then your motorcycle is ready to go. So I followed those exact instructions and I never got a check engine light on our ZX-6R after we put our flashed ECU back in the bike. Well, and so now I'll just show you this list of things that Mafia changed. So the fuel map has been optimized. The O2 sensor is eliminated. So after your tune, your bike no longer needs or requires an O2 sensor in the exhaust. And it even says right under this list, now that you have received your ECU back, unplug the O2 sensor to disable it. It does not have to be taken out just unplugged. So I left the O2 sensor in our bike. I just followed that cord up and then unplugged it from its connector. Well, and I'll actually show you how to do that quick. So if we get under the bike here, you can kind of see our O2 sensor in the exhaust right there. So if you follow those cords up here, they have just some little hooks, little holders that they sit in, and then you'll come to kind of this rubber matting that's right in here. So you can kind of pull this back and then you'll expose the connector for that O2 sensor. So it's really dark in there, it's hard to see, but you'll be able to do that very easily. Just follow that O2 sensor wire up in on that connector. There's just a little tab that you push and then you pull it out. That's all you have to do. And that's all we did. I wanted to leave the O2 sensor in if for any reason we flash this bike back to factory, you know, make any changes. If I did anything that I needed or wanted an O2 sensor, it'll just be too easy to plug that right back in and have it still in the exhaust. But you could put a plug in that O2 bung in your exhaust if you want to. And moving right down our list, it says that the EVAP is deleted now. Under that, it says the top speed limiter is removed. Timing map is optimized, exhaust servo is eliminated. So with this flash on our motorcycle, we could unplug our factory servo, you know, a servo buddy, whatever you may have had in there. Obviously, I'm gonna leave the servo still under the rear tail. I'm gonna leave it plugged in, it doesn't hurt anything. And you know, same with the O2 sensor, just so that we could always go back to factory settings if we wanted to. Fan temp is set to 195. Now this one's kind of cool. Rev limiter set to 15,800. So let me talk about that for just a second. So from the factory, this bike redlines at 14,500. So our red line is now 15.8, but also from the factory, the power, the fuel on this bike cuts off right around 14,000 RPMs. The factory tuning cuts the fuel by like 60% or something crazy at 14,000 RPMs, and so your power just absolutely drops before redline even. So this increased our rev limiter to 15.8, and then on top of that, you know, we just don't have that fall off, you know, that drop in power that we did have with the factory tuning. So now the bike really just wraps out. It really just keeps on singing. It really winds up and screams. So your top speed is definitely increased with raising that red line and just keeping the fueling at 100% in those RPMs. Next on the list, it says all restrictions removed. There is no restrictions of any sort on our motorcycle now. The pair valve is deleted now. And then lastly, they disabled the decel fuel cut. So, and actually that is probably my favorite change on the bike now. So from the factory, this bike, when you let off the throttle and then you go back to the throttle, it's kind of a jerky, very on-off feel. Whereas what I like is when I let off the throttle, if I gradually come back on, or even if I come back on quickly, you know, that's just a very smooth, linear transition of power. And that change, disabling that fuel cut, just makes a world of difference on the bike. I mean, just your shifts through gears, your on-off throttle, you know, when you're in a corner and you're off throttle and you jump back on it, everything is just so much better now with the throttle response. It really just changes the entire feel of the bike. So now More Mafia has an option to do a pops and bangs tune on this motorcycle. And we did elect to do that on our bike. So what that pops and bangs tune is, you're still getting the exact same horsepower. It's not more, it's not any less, but what that does is just make your bike kind of burble and crackle, and you'll get some backfires, you know, on engine decel, and you guys will hear this in just a second here. It's a lot. I mean, it's really good. It's exactly what I wanted. It's far more than I ever expected it would be, as far as like the sound and the crackle and the brap and the burble. So just generally in riding, you do get more crackles and burbles and noise from the exhaust on decel, but that pops and bangs tune, you almost need to kind of activate it yourself. So kind of how you do that, if you are rolling down the road in gear and you let off the throttle, if you slightly just breathe on that throttle and just rev it a little bit, that's when you really get your bike to just start crackling. I mean, it sounds like a war going on. It is obnoxious and just the coolest thing ever. I mean, depending on what exhaust you'd have on your bike, I mean, this can literally be as loud as gunshots. So we have a factory header, but we decatted it, and then we just have a slip-on exhaust, and I have the decibel killer out. So our bike already has quite a bit of volume, and then, you know, if on decel we give it a little throttle and kind of trigger those pops and bangs, well, you'll just see. I will not try and explain or spoil it anymore. And now, as far as price of everything, so the tune itself, you know, is around $350. More Mafia charges $100 extra to do the ultimate pops and bangs package or tune. And then there is the cost of you shipping out the ECU yourself. So, and that was about $11. I just went through the United States Postal Service. I'm in Nebraska, More Mafia is in South Carolina. But so everything all said and done for the tune and then opting for the pops and bangs and then just my cost of shipping the ECU out, we're sitting at about $470, all said and done, everything included. So, and of course, if you didn't do the pops and bangs, you know, you'd be in it for around the 360 or somewhere around there. But, and after riding this thing from the tune, you know, whether you do the pops and bangs or just their standard tune, so many kinks, so many quirks, so many things about the bike are just so ironed out and so smooth now. You know, it's funny, the bike is just smoother, it rides so much better, but then it is quicker, it screams more, it pulls harder. So it's really the best of all worlds. You know, it's tamer when you want it to be, it rides harder when you want to. Now, I can't speak to other tunes that are out there, other tuners, but as far as the More Mafia tune for this 24 ZX-6, man, I'd totally give it 5 stars. I would absolutely recommend it. I put about 200 miles on the bike now since it's been tuned and just could not be more happy with it. Nothing runs funny, nothing is weird about it. Everything about our bike, in every sense, is better after that tune. All right, well now I'm gonna go grab some gear. We're gonna hit the streets so you guys can see what this pops and bangs More Mafia tune on our bike is like. I hope you're ready for this.
All right, let's see how this flash is on our bike. So this is an icy cold start. We have not fired up this motorcycle yet today. Starts right up. No check engine light, idles just as it should. Even today I saw another person with a tune from another tuner other than More Mafia, and their RPMs like skyrocketed up to 6,000 RPMs and would fluctuate, but ours just does perfectly fine. It runs like it's brand new still. So we'll just let it warm up for a second and then we'll take this baby on the grand rip. Low RPMs, you won't get any pops or bangs. It's really just above that 4,000 RPMs. And our shifts, everything is just so smooth. That on-off throttle response. So if I let off the gas, we get a few pops and bangs there, as I wasn't breathing on the throttle or slightly revving it. But then if I slightly just rev that throttle as we are slowing down on engine decel. Oh my goodness. I'll show you guys up here. And the bike just sounds and feels just so pure and so raw. It just screams a little bit better. It just feels like it should. Alright, so I'll let off the throttle and then just slightly breathe on it. World War III. I'll do that once more for you. It pops and bangs way more than I thought it would, and that's awesome, but I almost have to trigger it, so I'll rev it up here. I let off the throttle. We just get kind of a normal engine braking. We don't get a ton of top pops and bangs. So if I don't touch that, we just get a fairly normal engine decel. We'll get a few pops and bangs then as it gets down to that 4,000 RPMs. But you really have to breathe on that throttle to trigger those pops and bangs. So it's kind of in your control if you want all the crackling and the burbling. So aside from the popping and banging, how is the tune? Well, it's really good. You know, a lot of the power that you gain is really just in your high RPMs up near redline. But everything else is just so smoothed out. It's very linear and seamless. And even our on and off throttle around like this roundabout, when you let off the gas and come back onto it, it's so smooth. Whereas before it was kind of a choppy, you know, with the way Kawasaki had that set up from the factory, kind of that decel fuel cut. And I think that's something they had to do for Euro 5 emissions, I'm not sure. But with that eliminated after the tune, oh man, this thing is just very easy to ride. It's very easy to ride smooth on it. But then when you want to open this thing up and just let it scream, my goodness. And then we'll wind her up a little bit and kind of see how that top end pulls, and with our new redline. Gosh, it just winds up so high. I think I only took it up to about 14.5. But to know that we could take it up to 15.8, my goodness. Let's get a few pops and bangs. Oh yeah. And then our bike with the factory header being decatted, you know, with us just having a slip-on exhaust, no sort of a spark arrestor or anything in it, it definitely shoots the flames. And when you hear that popping, I mean, it's just shooting the flames out that slip-on. It's awesome. Obviously during the daytime you can't really see it, but at nighttime it is a fiery blue show. And what's really nice is after the tune, all of your downshifts, you know, and your engine braking, your rev matching, is just so smooth. My goodness. You'd think you had a quick shifter down, as smooth as you can make it. And I love that when you just lay off the throttle and go back onto it, just get a quick pop. Oh man. A lot of times too, between my downshifts or between my upshifts, I'll get a little pop. So so you know at nighttime that pop is a little flame, so, which is kind of cool. In between your shifts, your bike just whoop. Now I cannot confirm or deny if this motorcycle would do this before, but I found out in playing around with this thing that after the tune I can be in 4th gear here, going at about 55 or so, and check this out. 4th gear frickin' wheelies, kids. Would the bike do that before? I don't know, I never tried, but it certainly does it very easily now. Oh my goodness. And this thing just wraps up so high now. Oh my goodness. Well, and we'll put our quick shifter on here and do a launch. And we'll see if we get any pops kind of in between our quick shifter shifts. Oh, and somebody brought it to my attention that you can just hold your clutch in and be in any gear and push your middle and lower button and it will toggle the quick shifter on. So I was told wrong. Terribly sorry, guys. Here we go. Through them hard. It bangs through them hard. Oh man. So now we can be in 4th gear. We'll pull in our clutch, push our buttons. Quick shifter is off. It seems like everybody gives me crap for not having the quick shifter on. I'm not a quick shifter guy. I like the clutch and banging through the gears myself. I feel like I can shift through the gears smoother than the quick shifter when I want to, and I can come into gears harder than the quick shifter when I want to. Coming around, we're coming in hot. To people and then just letting off the throttle and just making it just popple and crack. It's so funny. But yeah, the tune, gosh, everything about it is very good. That Harley guy was like, what in the world? Why did that make that sound? Some real loud crackles there, and I'm sure this is not coming through the microphone very well, kind of those pops and bangs, but it's as loud as a gun, for sure. It literally sounds like gunshots. And our bike perfectly idles right like it's supposed to. Everything is so smooth. Wow. I mean, It's just excellent. Everything that tune did to our bike has just made it so much better for the rider. It makes for such a pleasant experience, you know. It's smoother when you want it to be, and it's more brutal and untamed when you really get on it. Like, it is literally just the best of both worlds. I can't even quite believe how it can be so, but it is.
Oh. Now, after riding something as hot as the 2024 Kawasaki Ninja ZX-6R, I like to grab something as cold as the Rockies. That's why I choose Coors Light to cool off. Best decision you'll ever make. So as far as the tune goes from More Mafia, overall, I could not be more happy with it. The bike just runs so good. Everything is so smooth. Like I was saying, my favorite part about the whole tune is that decel fuel cutoff, that they eliminate that. It makes your on and off throttle so much smoother. It's just kind of herky and jerky from the factory, because that is a thing on the ECU. So with More Mafia getting rid of that, it's just a game changer. It makes your riding experience so much better. With all the restrictions pulled off the bike too, you just notice that it just runs, it just feels so much more pure and raw. You know, once you get to about mid RPM, you really notice that the sound of the motor is just different. Your bike just runs harder and better. You really get the feeling that your bike is functioning and running at its full potential. Whereas before the tune, you know, there is kind of this sense or this feeling that this motorcycle, this bike is held back. You know, it just runs smoother, but not necessarily in a good way. It just feels more corked up. And after the tune, it's just the right amount of brutal, raw, and untamed that you want. I also like that they play with that RPM redline. You know, this motor has power. It can really wind up. And from the factory to pass emissions, you know, they've got to tame it down. They have to put it at the standard it's at, that it comes from the factory. But there is more there to unlock, you know, on the power, in the RPM range. And so it's very cool to up that red line, to kind of get the full use out of your RPMs, kind of get that full power band versus the sharp drop off that it has around 14,000, you know, right out of the gate from the factory. You know, I've seen people get their bike tuned from other tuners, you know, around the country, whether they're a big name or local. And I've seen some people that go with those tuners when they start up their motorcycle, their RPMs do not do what ours did, which is just start up. It runs perfectly fine. I've seen some people to where their bike kind of like bogs and is kind of coughing right off the bat, and then their RPM shoot up way higher. But after our flash from More Mafia, our bike just starts, it runs, it idles, it screams perfectly, just as it should. You know, that we followed the steps on our slip of paper that we got back with our ECU, so we never got a check engine light at all on our bike. You know, that's really cool. More Mafia definitely knows what they're doing. They know these motorcycles. Well, and something else I'll say is, in theory, with a mail-in flash tune on your ECU, every motorcycle is going to be slightly different, right? So somebody's 2024 ZX-6R with this same tune might put out slightly different numbers on a dyno than ours did. So while I will acknowledge that just mail-in flash tunes are not as good as a perfect dyno tune of your bike specifically to your motorcycle, they 100% get you in the ballpark that you need to be, and in some cases they will be literally perfect. So I think that for the money spent, you know, doing a mail-in flash tune like More Mafia is awesome. I would 100% recommend it. You know, using our good old butt dyno, our bike is 100% faster than it was. You know, like I was saying, I was trying to guess of like where we're at for horsepower. Like, it could be 7 horsepower more than it was. It could be 12. Like, I'm just really not sure. But what I am sure about is that our low RPM and mid RPM, mid-range power, are just as strong as they were before the tune. And then once you really start to wind this thing up and wring its neck, it's absolutely noticeable that you just have more get up, more go, more power. It revs out better, it revs out harder. And the whole pops and bangs tune that we elected to do, that is just so funny. I mean, yeah, it's loud and obnoxious, and it's probably over the top. You know, I didn't know exactly how noisy and how much this thing would cackle from doing the pops and bangs package, but it is a rowdy little girl now. But what I do like about it is that it's somewhat, you know, in my control. You don't get too many pops and bangs when you just let off the throttle. But if you slightly open that or slightly crack that throttle, you know, just barely breathe on it on the decel, that's when suddenly it sounds like World War III. So it's cool. I mean, if I did it again, I would 100% go with the pops and bangs again. That is just, it's so fun to drive. This bike is absolutely a neck breaker with that pops and bangs package. I mean, everybody, whether they're in a car, on another motorcycle, walking their dog, it just draws all the attention, whether it be for good or for worse. But yeah, that's about all I've got today. You know, obviously we'll keep making videos with this bike. You'll get to see us ride it more and do plenty other things to it, but just wanted to kind of follow up on our review of this ECU flash from More Mafia. So very cool. I would 100% recommend it. Those guys are great. Your motorcycle just runs perfect afterwards. So I would definitely endorse and recommend those guys. So like the video if this helped you out, subscribe if you guys want to see more, and until next time, have a wonderful night, guys.